Kathryn. How you doing?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So the album is called "Hit the Lights." It's a terrific record. It's a throwback record in certain regards. You've got a big voice. There's some bluesy songs, some old school style songs. There's one called "Be My Sin." So tell me, "Hit the Lights." Are we turning them off or on?
That was the fun, is that it can be all of the above. Because, light usually represents kind of like revealing yourself. And so there's that kind of side of it because, the album represents me as a person and an artist. So it's kind of revealing who I am to the world via song. And then it's also, you got the Be My Sin, which is kind of like, oh, let's hit those lights off. So it's got all of the above.
All right. Good answer. I like to have lights on and off depending on the time of day. You grew up in San Diego.
Yes.
You live in Los Angeles now. You've been to Brazil recently. We're going to talk about all of that, but let's start in San Diego. Tell me about growing up. Was it a musical family? How did you get into music?
Yeah, so my family always says that I got all of the musical genes and that just took them from them. So we always make fun of my dad because he can't clap on beat. And so when we'll go to a concert, everyone clap along. My brother and I'll be like, no, Dad, no, don't do it. But and then I've always singing's always been my number one love. And I think once I was 7, my parents got me singing lessons, and then started writing when I was 16, and then the rest is kind of history.
And this is your first record. You started recording. How old were you when you started writing and recording the songs for this record?
Let's see. So I Told You So, which is on the Brazilian version of the record, which we'll talk about later. That was the 6th song I ever wrote. So I think I was maybe 16 and a half, almost 17. And then the last song that I wrote on the album was Rhythm and Booze, like rhythm and blues, but not, because I think I'm funny, basically. And so I wrote that one in January of this year. So it's kind of like a 2-year kind of blend.
And when you're writing a song like that at 16, what are you drawing on? Personal experience, things you've seen, other records you've heard. Where's it coming from?
Yeah, I think my inspiration comes both from my own experiences and then also those of the people around me. But mainly it's just kind of a strong emotion because as a songwriter I consider myself a storyteller. And I think, when you strip the details away from everyone's personal story, we all kind of go through the same basic emotional journey, just sometimes in opposite order. But I mean, Told You So, for example, was kind of a PSA, because I remember watching a bunch of movies, and the girl is like, oh my God, just leave me alone, and runs away. And the guy's like, oh, okay, cool. That's what she wants. And then every girl's like, no, you idiot. You're supposed to go after her.
Wait, I'm supposed to go after her?
Oh, yeah. If she's like, oh, my God, leave me alone, runs off. It's like my song says, she doesn't want space. She just wants to be chased. But, so you're welcome, men of the world, for translating women.
So let's stick with that song for a second because that song is part of the story, really the reason that you were in Brazil. That song is used on a Brazilian television show.
Yeah, it's called Malação. And it became the character theme of, her name is Jade. And then as she got in this adorable relationship with this guy named Cobra, it became their couple song as well. So anytime something happened with them,
and this is essentially a Brazilian telenovela. It's essentially a Brazilian primetime soap opera.
Yeah, I think its main audience is generally teenagers to young adults. But they definitely. The passion of Brazilian fans is incomparable to anywhere else.
So how does a song that you started writing at 16 and a half, I think you said, come to be a theme song on a Brazilian primetime television show?
Yeah, so I have an amazing publisher, which for those of you who don't know, that's the person that kind of shops songs to music supervisors for TV and movies. So shout out to them, Bill and Cindy at Heavy Hitters Music. They're going to be like, yes. They've got a great relationship with a bunch of foreign publishers or like sub-publishers. And so I think originally the song that they wanted was an Adele song, who's like my idol. And so I think there was, some kind of clearance issue. So they went out to a bunch of publishers in the area, and they're like, oh, hey, like we need someone who sounds kind of like Adele. And so my publisher sent, my song I Told You So, and then this other one called So Undeniable over. And Undeniable is more of a dance song versus Told You So is kind of like a love ballad. And they actually ended up taking both and using them for different reasons in the show.
And it's fair to say you're big in Brazil.
Ole. Is that not Portuguese? I don't know.
How is your Portuguese, Kathryn?
You know how it is.
I do.
I did my Portuguese for you. Is it time? Are you calling me to action?
You can use as much of it as you want.
All right. I feel like I need to look at all the cameras at once. So ready for this, guys? I may need a little encouragement. Could I get a yes? There we go. That feels better. I don't know why. It just seems like I can do it better now. Okay. Let's see. Olá, meu nome é Kathryn Dean e meu novo álbum, Hit the Lights, está disponível no Spotify, no iTunes, na Apple Music e Deezer. Obrigada.
But in July, and this is a show, you're reaching 40, 50 million, your music is reaching 40 or 50 million people a night who are tuning into this show. You went down to Brazil in July. Yes. You taped a spot for the show itself, but you also played a concert down there.
Yeah, this is going to make me sound super I don't know, you guys are going to be mad at me, but my life is so hard because I had to go play on the beach in Copacabana. And it was just an amazing experience. And we met with a couple Brazilian musicians, and they just brought this, flavor to the songs that I'd never heard with my own. Yeah,
so it was a band put together for the occasion, Brazilian guys who had learned your album, right?
Yeah, they're like, here's 24 hours, go, you can do it. And they did, so I was very impressed.
Pretty amazing. What was it like being down there?
Oh, it's so beautiful down there. I became obsessed with this thing called Brigadeiro. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but it's like this, imagine if fudge and then chocolate frosting had a love child, it would be this. And it was so good. And then I fell in love with a bunch of food.
I hardly ever have fudge and think, what this needs is some chocolate frosting.
Yeah, well, now you will. So you're welcome. Or shall I say, obrigada?
I should be saying that to you. You mentioned Adele. What are the other artists that you've been looking up to as your career has been coming together, as you've been learning how to write songs?
Yeah, so, the reason behind Adele is that, she just has this, raw kind of passion in her voice and she just brings this, I don't know, this emotion to every song, and you listen to it, and you're like, this girl's been through that. She knows exactly what she's talking about, which, as a vocalist and performer, that's kind of the goal, was to make someone feel something. And then in terms of songwriting, I love Mumford & Sons. Marcus Mumford is a poet. And let's see, who else? Carole King. That was the first song I ever memorized, was You've Got a Friend, which I'm not sure if it was by her and then James Taylor, but then there was Together, and it was a whole thing happened there. But and then my addiction to harmonies comes from Crosby, Stills, Nash, and I always say plus or minus Young. And then as an alto in a field of sopranos, Tracy Chapman and Stevie Nicks definitely encouraged me to dig into my lower range.
There's a lot of old school in there. I mean, Mumford & Sons and Adele are recent artists. The music looks a little back, but Crosby, Stills and Nash, Carole King, Fleetwood Mac. This is, as we call it, classic rock. Was this the music your parents were playing when you were growing up, or where'd you come across this stuff? Yeah,
my parents kind of had this little battle that, my mom's like, oh, the 70s were so much better than the 80s in terms of music. And so there's kind of that mesh of kind of the 70s, kind of folk kind of sound, Like another one I was raised on was Amy by Pure Prairie League. Such a classic. Anytime I meet an Amy, I will sing it to her, like no matter where we are. And
Do we have any in the audience?
Is there an Amy?
Oh, we've missed out on a chance to hear that one.
It's okay, guys. Just go home, change your name before the next time we meet each other, and it'll happen. Yeah, and then there's kind of my dad's like, oh no, the 80s are better with all like the heart, kind of the rock and everything. So I actually saw Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac recently, and I was like, I totally see why you got all the ladies. And I was like, take me away. Just kidding. Unless you're watching.
Wow.
It's a lot to process, I'm sorry.
I'd read that you used your parents as a kind of informal focus group when you were writing songs for this record.
Yes, I came up with a foolproof method of figuring out if a song that's like, in its earlier stages, if it's worth kind of pursuing the song and recording it. So basically, yeah, when it was still kind of rough, but completed, I would sing it for my parents. And then if I heard my mom like humming the melody around the house the next day, then I would know it was a keeper and go and record it. TM for that. I don't think you can TM that, but.
And how many songs did you write and record for this one?
I think I want to say there's like, depending on if it's the American or Brazilian version, like 10 to 12 songs on the album. And actually the 5 of them were on my EP,
right,
which was released last September. But we kind of went back and revamped them after working on these new tracks. We're like, that's not going to stand up. We need more like live drums, which, I'm sure isn't really used in music that much anymore. But it just has this amazing sound that, you just can't beat.
You wanted a big and old school sound to this thing.
Well, I love kind of mixing polarities in all aspects of my life. So like fashion, like the masculine, feminine, and, leather and lace. And then also kind of, the old school, new school. So, yeah. And then I wrote a bunch of songs, but then not everything passed my trademarked test. So
not everything was hummed around the house.
Exactly.
All right. So what's next? What are you looking forward to right now?
Yeah, I mean, just continuing to promote the album. I'm hoping to go back to Brazil sometime in the near future to work on my Portuguese. Also, that's definitely something that's on the forefront of my mind. But and then just kind of I'm always writing because that's what I love to do, and it's kind of my version of therapy. So yeah, I'm just always doing that, and recording more, and just going out and performing. That's where I'm happiest. So
there you go. We've got time for some questions, if we have any from the crowd. Oh, there's a mic coming your way. Hold on one second.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question. So what do you do on your time off? And if you had to collaborate with anybody, who would it be?
Okay, I'm going to answer the second one first, just to mix it up. I would collaborate with either Ed Sheeran or Lindsey Buckingham, just because both of them are great guitar players and vocalists and songwriters, and I don't know, I just love how my voice blends with male vocals. And if you're like, oh, I want to hear that, great question. You can find that on YouTube. And this amazing musician named Pip from The Voice, and I did a cover of Night Changes by 1D, One Direction.
No, I'm familiar with their work.
Are you sure?
I am.
I can explain. There's this whole,
believe
drama
me,
went down.
There were tears all down my face when Zion left.
It's going to be okay.
It's terrible.
I'll pray for you. But, and so, it'd just be awesome to work with either of them. And then, yes, for my free time, I just love, volunteering. I know that sounds really pageant girl, but... I think something about helping other people, especially children and animals for me, but it just really grounds you, and it kind of puts your life and everything that's stressing you out in perspective. Does that answer your question, hopefully? Yeah. I'm not athletic. I'll throw that one out there.
Yes.
Kathryn, nice to see you here. I just wanted to find out what is your songwriting process? I mean, how do you do that? With whom, maybe, where, when, or why?
You're asking all the right questions. And then how? Yeah, that's the 5, right?
Who, where,
You're a
when,
journalist.
so. Sure, yes, yeah. The 5 W's, yes.
You got the seal of approval. Don't worry. Yeah, but so, whenever I get a strong emotion, I'll go to either my guitar, piano, or ukulele. Just go write the song and then throw it through the parent test. And I think, as I was saying, I think as a songwriter, you're kind of a storyteller. And so I try and write in a way that's what I call uniquely vague. So basically, there's enough kind of detail in there that you feel like you're getting the story out of it, and you kind of understand the emotion of the narrator, so basically me as I'm singing, but then also kind of leaving enough space so people can fill in their own details. And they're like, oh my God, that's my life. It's that was the point. So.
And you collaborated, you co-wrote on this record. Yeah,
so I think there were, 1, 2, 3 tracks. So one of my producers or one of the writers I work with will send me an instrumental track to you should do something cool for this. And then so I'll create a melody and lyrics, to kind of go over the music track, and then it becomes one. Other questions?
There we go.
Hi, I'm from San Diego myself, San Diego County, actually. I was wondering how you liked growing up in San Diego?
Yeah.
And what part?
So I grew up in North County, San Diego. Do you know where Lake Hodges is? Yeah, around Escondido. Yeah, so I grew up in that area. It's amazing. So my house is we have 6 neighbors, and it's on this kind of highway thing, and then there's a little road that doesn't even have a real sign. So I always call it oh, I live in Narnia, guys. It's fine. It's very difficult to access. But it's nice because it's nice and private. So, but we have more neighbors moving in, which is rough because growing up I would just sing at the top of my lungs in the middle of the driveway, just oh, I'm gonna do me. But now they're no, you're not. You're ruining this neighborhood. And I'm fine. Agree to disagree.
I think it would be a great neighborhood thing to have you singing in the driveway, just strolling the neighborhood troubadour style.
Exactly. Yeah. Is that an invitation to come invade your neighborhood?
Absolutely. It's just a few blocks away. You can come there and sing anytime. When did you move from San Francisco to Los Angeles?
I moved in August of this last year. So I've been there for a year now. And it's definitely, the traffic was something to get used to for sure. I definitely became a more aggressive driver, which I feel in New York you guys are oh yeah, we were already on board with that. But yeah, so got more embrace the New York style of driving.
Okay. Got a question up front here?
Oh, she stood up. I like it. Hello.
No, they told me to get up. So I'm a Brazilian, so keep up the good work. Your Portuguese sounds beautiful.
Muito obrigada.
Oh, that's awesome. De nada. So I know you like brigadeiro, but did you have the chance to know something of the Brazilian music? Do you maybe want in the future do something, inspire yourself for future work?
Yeah, definitely. So just listening to Brazilian music, and then especially kind of we were walking around in, I think it's Panama. Is that where the big markets are? Just hearing all the music, and also having my musicians that were there with me, hearing their kind of just the flair and the kind of cool flavoring that they bring to my songs is definitely makes me want to write with someone down there. And I think as a songwriter and a musician, you have to always be listening to new music and old music and kind of find what your sound is and keep evolving as time does. So we'll see. But if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, ready for the plug? Okay, so on Twitter, it's Real Kathryn Dean. On Facebook and Instagram, it's Kathryn Dean Official. It's spelled like that. That's my face. And so, every collaboration or anything I do always comes through there first. So stay tuned.
Hi, so nice to finally meet you. I actually listened to one of your songs on your EP, which was really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, my question is, for anyone who's very passionate about music, who has a very low register like you said that you have, do you have any advice for aspiring musicians looking to get into it as young as you have?
Yeah, definitely. I think, if singing is your passion and, it's what you want to do, you kind of, definitely have to dive in. And I think, like anything, it's going to be hard work. It's not, as easy as it could seem sometimes. But, I think anything really is. And I don't know if any of you, have you ever read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers?
Have I read Malcolm Gladwell's book?
Yes.
Yes.
The Outliers.
Yes.
Are you sure? No, just kidding.
Yes.
There, it's the confidence and the posture that really sold me on that one. Yeah, but he has this whole thing about, well, a bunch of things, but one thing is that, you need to do something for 10,000 hours before you can master it. And the other thing, kind of info from his book that's really impacted my life is just kind of the idea that there's someone out there who's got like the same kind of skill sets and the same desires that you have, and the only thing that's going to differentiate you from that person is how hard you're willing to work. So you've got to outwork them. And I would say, if you're an alto, just, you can always bring things down a couple keys. And, I think a lot of times it's like, oh, this girl's got amazing range. And it's like she goes from here to here. I'm not talking about myself, to be clear. I'm like other people, because that would just be weird. But I think, versus people who can go from like here to here don't get that same kind of comparison. And so just knowing that it really does add a different sound. And it's been awesome in terms of being able to do harmonies, because you can kind of go lower and it gives a kind of a more full or almost like darker sound, versus if you go like a higher harmony, it sounds more kind of pure and angelic, which isn't always what you want. So
there you go. So remember, you're only 10,000 hours away from your goal.
Exactly.
You're only ever 10,000 hours away.
Well, this interview was half an hour, so you're, what is that, 9,909.
No one told me there was going to be math, Kathryn.
I know, I'm sorry. I was hoping you could cut me off. I was like just throwing down nines, hoping that someone would be like, oh, that's the answer.
Well, we're actually going to wrap it up because
there you go.
That's our last question. But Kathryn, thank you very much. This is terrific.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.